Greg came out. There's a new paper. It was by Beischer, like Susan Beischer from 2020. The article said that basically, if you look at people before the return to play, LSI, like the limb symmetry index, right? So it wasn't linked to the re-injury rates for ACLs. And they also look at the cluster test that we use, what we call like the Delaware test. And if you put the 5 tests together, like the hopping test and the quad strength, it didn't seem to predict re-injury either. If you look at the sample size, 159 people, so athletes, and they look at re-injuries. The problem is that like a lot of if I recall, there were 10 injuries on the same leg and then 18 on the other leg. So if you think about it, limb symmetry index, the way I see it is that it's an estimation of actual strength, like the strength to body weight ratio. Because if you look at like other research on hips and like knees, the strength to body weight ratio seems to be the predictive value. And in my opinion, like the causal value, like if you're very strong for your body weight, that's good. But if you're very strong, but not for your body weight, that's not good, right? Pretty easy to understand. It doesn't really matter to your leg if it's stronger than the other, right? Because a lot of like people have asymmetries and they're not injured. So when you get injured, the reason we use the LSI is just because it's a good estimation of what the other leg used to be. Right. So with that being said, there were only 28 injuries, and only 10 of those were on the same side. Like it was a re-injury. The others were an injury to the other side. Right. So 8 of those. I'm sorry, there was only 18 injuries. So I don't think that's LSI, like limb symmetry index, is relevant for those if you think about it, right? Because what does it matter that they're not symmetrical if you're injuring the other leg? I don't know if my point is like clear. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, maybe. Well, what if the other leg is a little bit stronger and has to compensate more for the one?
You could see it that way, but it's usually not predictive if you look at other research.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think it matters. That's like the big thing. So again, they were only pooling on like 10 injuries. And the other thing is the average. So if you look at the cutoff that's been used to validate the Delaware criteria, so the ones by Snyder-Mackler and Whitney Hurd is like the other big one, if I recall. Well, the average was like 90%. So the cutoff is 90%, and the average person at a 90% LSI. It's like if you're doing a research on happiness and income, it's the same way that like money doesn't make you happy, but not having it does make you feel like shit. Like being poor sure sucks, right? When you don't have your basic needs met. It's the same thing for ACLs, where it seems that weakness predicts re-injury. It's not necessarily strength. So like if you're above 85%, and there's like 2 studies on this. There's the Grindam study from 2016, which is based on the Canon trials. If you're above 90%, it's like I think like every percent below 90% is a 3% increase in re-injury risk, right? So if you're missing 10%, that's like a 30% increase in injuries. And there's other studies on this. But if you're strong, like at past 90%, you're considered strong, right? And past that point, it doesn't seem to matter. It's like it's but it doesn't seem to matter that much.
Is it just a point of diminishing returns then?
Exactly.